Welcome to the Super Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the new Super Gamer Podcast, episode 111. Our guest this week very recently won Best Album at the 2022 Game Music Remix Awards at VGMCon for their album, The Old Blood, a Bloodborne concept album. We have Mahn. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's start with that. How does it feel to win Best Album?
Great, and I've told the story a few times, but maybe I'll try to tell it a different way. And we can definitely talk about how the conception of the album and stuff like that. But I think the actual winning part was unexpected, and I really do mean that in the sense that I'm sure you looked at the list of all the winners of every category that was part of the Game Music Remix Awards, but the other four nominees that were in the Best Album category were just absolutely amazing, like stacked. And also genres that probably have a wider appeal. So then when I ended up in there, I was like, this is like a very dark, brooding metal album. Like, is anybody going to pick this? Like, is anybody, it's just a little too, it's not very uplifting. Like, I listened to some of the music on the other albums, and it's like very uplifting and just jazzy and like jazz fusion and classical. And it just makes you feel good. And you listen to mine, it just makes you feel kind of down. But yeah, that's what really surprised me the most is that I really thought I boxed myself out because of the genre, but obviously it got picked for. Of course, I will never know what the criteria is. I don't think that's not revealed, but I feel that what did help me was I had a vision for the entire album, and I'm sure we can talk about Bloodborne the game itself at some point, but that's one of my favorite games ever. I absolutely love it. The atmosphere, the gameplay, the lore. Also, I love all Soulsborne games, but that's still my favorite. And yes, I know Elden Ring is all the hotness right now, but it's also my favorite soundtrack from the series. And I wanted to do an album, basically a concept album, where I told the lore of the game by chronologically ordering the bosses you fight, and then there might be some like diversions here and there, but that's the gist of it. And I think when I've gotten some compliments from people who have said, I've never played Bloodborne, I know it exists, I'm not familiar with the soundtrack, but I listened to your album and it's great. So those compliments meant a lot to me, and I think maybe that may have translated to the folks that ended up picking it as best album because I somehow I think my vision got across, and yeah, I feel I'm on cloud nine about the whole thing.
As you mentioned, it's a metal album, and it sort of began with a single track you did on Syndravania and Viking Guitar's Dance Macabre 7.
Yes.
Was that the direct, was that the first, when you made that song, was that the first time you're like, I can make an album out of this?
A lot of projects start that way, for me anyway. And you've done your homework, nicely done. Yes, so the Lawrence the First Vicar was my contribution to that particular compilation. And now, even when I started working on it, I was like, God, it'd be really, really cool to do an entire album based on this. And it took me a long time just to do that one song because I quite honestly just don't know how to do orchestration. Like I wanted like a string orchestra to be part of that song, but I'm not classically trained. I don't know how to put like, violins on top of violas and cellos and double basses and all that kind of stuff. I had no idea how to do that. And it was just really kind of figuring it out on my own, watching YouTube videos. And then that single came out, which I was pretty proud of, but then I was like, okay, let's try and do like a whole thing. And that almost fell flat on its face after getting done with that one single, because it just got harder and harder and harder. And what made it even particularly harder is, I mean, I don't have the best ear for music, but some of the songs that I ended up covering and arranging for the album, they were already transcribed by somebody else. Like they had written up sheet music for it, and had figured out the orchestration. So I was able to at least work off of something. But that was only like for half. But then the other half there was just nothing. Nobody had ever tackled those songs before, and I was like, I want to cover these, but I have to figure them out. So sometimes it was just trial and error, where I'd listen to 5 sections of a song and I'd press a key on my MIDI controller just to hear if I'm getting the right note. And that obviously made things take a very, very long time. We're probably talking 500 to 700 hours of time from start to finish on that whole thing. But it was worth it.
I mean, you kind of answered what I'm about to ask here, but I think the full album took about 16 months, and you almost quit on the album at some point. When did you almost quit? Why? And then what was it that made you keep going?
I'm glad you asked this question anyway. So what made me almost quit was the orchestration piece. It was like, oh God, like this has to be in there. I feel like if it's missing, it's just not going to have the impact that I want. And, I kind of figured that out for the first song, but then it just, like I said, it just got tougher. It really did. So by the time the Dance Macabre 7 compilation came out, it was October. Then I started working on some other songs like a couple months later in December. And then the quitting point was like somewhere around January or February. But then what made me keep going? It was, I just kind of shelved the whole thing for about a month. I was like, you know what? I need to just step away from this thing. And I came back, and I think, again, I just needed to kind of reset my mind. It was, I just kind of went back to table stakes. Like, what did I do to try to get, what did I do to get the first song out the door as part of the Dance Macabre compilation? So I was like, all right, let's just go back to watching some YouTube videos. And maybe just a tip for anybody, if you want to learn about orchestration or classical music, look for a guy that has like a British or a Scottish accent, because they've got some real street cred. And I unfortunately, I don't remember the name of this individual whose videos I watched, but they were very well done. He taught very well. And he also, and I think what kind of connected me with him was, like, he said that he had no classical training. So it just kind of blew my mind. He's like sitting there writing these really, really awesome orchestral lines. And I was like, he has no training at all. Like, he just taught himself how to do this and never went to school or whatever. So I was like, if he can do it, then I can do it. So then I just kind of like put my nose back to the grindstone, and then I started figuring things out again, and things started moving, but slower. But then the curve like started kind of going up and up and up. And by the time I reached the halfway point, I was like, this is the thing. Like, I can do this. And then it just kind of continued from there.
At what point, I mean, maybe you didn't feel this way, but I'm pretty sure I've heard you say that you knew you had something quite special. So at what point in the process were you like, this album is going the way I want it, this is good?
Yeah, that was, I would say it was about the halfway point.
Yeah.
And I don't quite remember, what songs I had done at the halfway point. But, I still was kind of following the vision of, this is a concept album. I want this to tell a story. And I think at that point, like, even the tracks weren't even in order at that point, but it didn't really matter. But even before I got to the mixing phase, like, I was still in the middle of arrangement. I would kind of play back the original source material and be like, okay, does this sounds like the original source material. But then when I started like layering in metal guitars, metal bass, and just like really punchy drums, and then like all the other secret sauce that went into it, like the vocals, and if we were on video, I'd show you the toy glockenspiel that I used for one of the songs.
I saw the picture, actually.
Yeah. So there, and I'll be sure. Don't let me get out of here without acknowledging all the other people that were involved in this project.
Okay.
Because that is at that point I felt like, yeah, this is something. But then I started getting more ideas at that point. It's like, I should like put some vocals in here, because like this is a VGM album. Like, nobody's gonna expect vocals. Like, let's get some vocals in there. And I think I sprinkled in just the right amount of fairy dust in that area. So that's the long answer to your question.
Well, I do have a question about one of the performers coming up, so I'll get you to say all the people who have helped you on the album.
Yes, please. Okay, so yeah, they're obviously Terrace Music, and how I got her involved was, as I kind of went through the arrangements, I said I want a female solo vocalist and a violinist. She does both, and I'd been a fan of her work. I reached out to her and said, hey, here's the project, here's my vision. Are you interested? And within like a day, she got back to me. She said, I'm on board. So that was awesome. So I hope, she and I had never talked about that, but I hope maybe she believed in it. I hope it wasn't just another gig for her, because to me it meant something that she got back to me so quickly and said, yeah, I want to be a part of this. So then the other person involved was Chris Doty. So he pretty much led the charge when it came to the choir vocals. So there's certain songs that have male choir vocals, and there's like a male choir, which are 4 members layered on top of each other. So that's myself, my buddy Charles Tarango, Viking Guitar, Eric Peabody, who's pretty well known in like the VGM, the kind of the postage stamp of metal performers in the VGM community, and then of course Chris, and Chris he's actually in a choir out of Vancouver, and when I first heard his vocals come in, I said, this is like he's like the real powerhouse of this 4-person choir. So I kind of like started moving him up in the balance and kind of pushing everybody else down once I got his vocal tracks. And that really sometimes it's just really, really amazing when you find the right person to collaborate with. And that was that was like yet another moment where I was like, okay, yeah, I'm onto something. But then when I started kind of getting the collaborators' performances into my arrangements, like it took everything to another level. It was really something. And to be fully transparent, I had never really collaborated with anybody before, and I think in the VGM community, that's a pretty common thing for people to collaborate with each other. And for all my other releases prior to the Old Blood, I was on my own pretty much the entire time, and I really wanted to change that for this project. And maybe towards the end, I'll kind of hint at what I'm working on next. But it's all I really, really enjoy collaboration, and I want to do more of it.
So Tara C. Music's the one I wanted to ask about. As you mentioned, Tara is one of the performers featured on the Old Blood, both vocals and some violin. But she also had an album nominated for an award in Best Album category.
Yes.
Which makes me laugh a bit. Like, was there any teasing, or did you have to, like, apologize? Like, oh, sorry.
No. I mean, when the nominee list came out, we're obviously on social media saying like, hey, like my album is up for nomination. So of course, like we kind of cross post on each other's tweets, like saying like, oh, yeah, mine's up for nomination too. And then she's like, all right, like I forget exactly what she said, but like, let's root for each other. And then I responded with like the gif of Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator with like the biceps. Yeah, I was like, that's like the perfect. It's like, let's go, And to her credit, when the actual winners were announced, I didn't see it. That's kind of another story of why I missed the actual announcement. But she was one. I think she was the first person who reached out to me to say congratulations. Like when the announcement was made, my phone starts blowing up, and I look at all my notifications, and I'm pretty sure hers was right at the top. So I definitely. She was obviously a super, super good sport about it. And even though she's not actually credited on the tracks that she's on, I credited all of the other musicians as guests. I really, really do my best to make sure everybody knows that there were other people involved in the project.
Yeah, so when you won, you weren't actually present, as you just sort of mentioned, but you did get 2 beers out of it.
Yes.
Is that the award? Here you go, 2 drinks.
Yeah, which I graciously accepted. But yeah, I was basically the way that all went down was I was at VGM Con, and I went to the quote unquote online stage, which was just a room at the event, which showed what they were broadcasting online for the online stage. And the online stage included performers who were performing online, and then like certain special events like the actual awards announcements. And I think they were running behind that night, so this would have been the Saturday night. And I went to the room, and it was empty. There was like a big "we'll be back" screen. So I was like, okay, they're probably running behind. I'll just maybe come back later. So I leave, and then I'm hanging out with my buddy Rocky, who drummed for me as part of that set that weekend, and then hanging out with a couple other people. Hang On Get Ready, who was a new friend, and some other folks, and we were just kind of hanging out. And I think he was the one who told me that I won. Like, he was sitting across from me, and he was just looking at his phone. He was like, "You won Best Album." I was like, "Wait, is this a joke?" And I'm looking at my phone. People are saying congratulations, and then within about 5 minutes, James, who's in charge of the selection committee, he came over. He personally congratulated me, and he bought me a couple drinks. So yes, that's. But I mean, that's when I knew, I was like, this is a real thing. Like, I was like, people were saying like, yeah, you won, and I'm like, I give a giant hug to my buddy Rocky, who was rooting for me, and I was like, okay, this is like is this like the unofficial win, or I need to see, I need proof. And then when James came over and said you won, I was like, okay, that's all I need.
So before we started recording, you had mentioned that you're doing the podcast circuit. You've had a bit of an upswing, I guess, as far as people knowing who you are. Do you credit this award win? How's this been?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a part of it. So I've been releasing VGM for the past 5.5 years, but this is like really the first time I've put myself out there, and it's not just yeah, I've done other things before, but I really didn't. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm kind of doing this. Like, here's my latest release, guys. Hope you get it. And that was kind of my attitude before. But then when I finished this album, I was like, like I said, I think this is really special. And other people who had listened to it before it came out said, yeah, you're really onto something here. So, I felt validated and I started getting myself out there more. But I think like VGM Con was like, not only because I won the award there, that was also the first time I performed in front of a live audience ever since being a VGM artist. And the time I probably performed before that was, I can't even remember. It was probably at least a decade ago. So that was the other big part of it, was that just getting out in front of a crowd and playing my stuff. And I thought I was trying to do too much with that performance. Like I had various different guests come up as part of my set, and the tech got a little complicated. And I've never run a band before. Not that it really is a full-fledged band, but it was like, okay, am I trying to do too much for my quote unquote inaugural performance? Luckily, it all worked out. I thought everything went off without a hitch. So yeah, is this the real beginning of the arc? Yeah, it could be. I'm obviously I'm trying to like ride the wave and get myself out there more later this year. Nothing I can really announce yet. Everything's just kind of in the works right now, but I'm super excited.
So I'm surprised to hear that this is your first, at least in a decade or so, live performance, because certainly you've been to a lot of cons over the years, and you seem to meet a lot of people, especially in the VGM community. You've just always been interested, and people have been very welcoming, or how's that gone about?
Yeah, 100%. So I started going to MagFest probably about 10 years ago, and I'm sure you know what MagFest is. And back then, like I just went by myself, and I didn't even know what the event. I quite really knew what the event was all about. Like you can judge that based on a byline. Then I went and I had a great time, and then it kind of built over the years where I started bringing friends in, and year over year, and like more people would come in. Then I'm actually trying to pinpoint the time where I was like, okay, I really would like to record my own stuff. I've been a fan of VGM for a very long time. I would say. The mini bosses were the first.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah. So, and they're I think they're still around actually. But yeah, the mini bosses like introduced me to the whole thing. But I don't even know if it was a thing then. It was just like, whoa, here's this band that's covering all these old Nintendo songs that I grew up with. But what really got me into it was Metroid Metal by Stemmage, and I've had, I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit about like meeting people at cons and stuff, but. I met him for the very first time this past October. There was an event in Pittsburgh, and Viking Guitar Live played there, and he plays guitar in that band, and that was like my real time to kind of fanboy out and tell him like I've been a fan of your work ever since you've been releasing stuff, and Metroid Metal is what really got me into VGM, and obviously he was super gracious about that, and. Yeah, I mean, even before I started recording stuff, everybody was always super welcoming, and I'd always be kind of awkward, like I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing here. But I have to credit Eric Peabody, Viking Guitar, a lot. Like he's I think where he and I had we had worked together quite a bit, but then I had seen him play a show once, just solo all by himself. And after he was done, we were just kind of hanging out, and he was showing me some tech on it, how he does his live stuff on his laptop. And he was like, "Okay, you want to go get some beers?" I was like, "Yeah, I want to get some beers." And then we just hung out and talked about thrash metal for like 2 or 3 hours. And like that was just the coolest thing ever. So yeah, everyone is in the community has just been super great. And now, I mean, if anything, like I just want to pay it forward now. Like if I end up kind of being like a granddad in the community at some point, then I want to try to help uplift others who may be nervous about performing as I was, or maybe new to recording or production or any of that stuff. And have I figured it all out? No, absolutely not. I've definitely come quite a ways in the 5 years, but again, like I wouldn't have done it all alone.
Well, hopefully, VGMCon is certainly has piqued my interest because it's 6 hours from me, but the closest American con that I can think of, big one anyway. So I certainly am looking forward to next year. Hopefully, I can get down there.
Yeah, highly recommended. The dates have been announced already, so tickets have gone on sale.
Oh, okay, I better get that.
Yeah, I plan on going again. It is it's a pretty good counterbalance to what MagFest is in terms of MagFest is kind of like the event for any given year, but there's thousands of people there. And I had met a bunch of people at this past one that I really, really wanted to meet, but when I did, it was like a 1 or 2 minute conversation. Like people are moving around, trying to go, either they're going to perform or they're going to see somebody perform, they're going to a panel. I mean, there's just so much going on. VGMCon is quite a bit smaller, but I mean that in a positive way. Like when I've talked to folks, the word we throw around is intimacy. Like, yeah, the people that you want to see perform, yeah, you can see them because you don't have to cover a lot of ground. But not only that, you'll probably get a chance to hang out with them too. And that is the coolest thing for me is that, it's everybody's super, super humble. Nobody feels they're above anybody else. Like at the end of the day, we're just playing music and having fun. And, I've been going to other people's sets for years, and to see some of the people that I've known for a while come to my set was extremely humbling.
What was the coolest person or the most starstruck you were at this VGMCon? Who did you meet for the first time?
That's easy. Okay, well, the most starstruck would be Night of the Round. Now, I have met them before. So that is easily even if I meet them again, I'm still starstruck because I'm just such a big fan of theirs. But then I think, oh man, like I can't really narrow it down. So I'll give you two people, which luckily I had convinced them to be guests in my set. So that's Gunderslam and Ian Cowell. And I've always been fans of theirs, love their stuff. And when I found out they were going, I said, hey, would you like to be a part of my set? I'll give you a song or two. We'll try to make it relatively simple. They pretty much did not hesitate to jump in. And then I actually met them. Oh, well, actually, I gotta walk myself back a bit. I've met Gunderslam before, quite a few times, but this was like a little bit different. So Ian Cowell, yes, that was the first time I had ever met him in the flesh, and he was actually one of the very first people I saw when I walked in, and it was just the coolest thing, and especially getting to see him in the flesh in his Link costume is another thing. So,
oh yeah, okay, yeah. I saw, yes.
I mean, he just owns it. Like it was almost like he was born in that costume. His set was particularly entertaining because when he started busting out the town song from Zelda 2, where he wears that costume and like dances around in that particular YouTube video, he said, "This is the first time I've ever performed this in front of an audience." So what he did was he starts the track, he puts his guitar down, and he goes out into the crowd and he just starts dancing. And then everybody in the crowd is dancing with him, and even Night of the Round was there. Like, these are some of the most metal dudes you can think of, and they're like just dancing their asses off with Ian just kind of leading the whole thing. And then like he goes through like the first 30 to 60 seconds, and he gets back on stage, picks up the guitar, and he continues to play the song. It was some real next level stuff there.
So did you get any rehearsal time with them?
I did, yeah, and that was a little stressful. So there were some logistical things we had to work out the day of the show. So without like telling a long diatribe, basically we had to rehearse at 7:00 in the morning on Saturday, which was the day of the show. So me and my buddy Rocky, who I mentioned, who drummed for my set, we had been practicing on our own the entire set. We had practiced on our own for about 2 months, and then I went to his place first before going to VGMCon. So that we could rehearse, just the two of us rehearse. So we got to rehearse for 2 days. Then we drove all the way out there from Michigan to Minneapolis. That's not a short drive. Mm-hmm. And but then we actually got to rehearse as a group the morning of the show. So that was a little nerve wracking to try to cram it in there. But I mean, everyone that was there, I was like, you know what, these guys, they've played in front of people before. I know even if I haven't met them too much and I haven't worked with them too much, like I know what their work ethic is like. This is going to be totally fine. And sure enough, when we were at rehearsal, like we were like not quite in sync, but that's what it's for. So, by the time we got to the end of rehearsal after a couple hours, they're like, yeah, I mean, like we're probably about 80% there. And Ian was like, you know what, yeah, just don't worry about it. And I trust him. He basically said, just don't worry about this. It's like when you get up on stage, like you're going to figure out that other 20% when you're up there. It's just, you kind of let the adrenaline and the energy of the live performance just kind of carry you the rest of the way. And the thing is, it meant a lot to me to hear him say that, because I don't think he knew that I had never performed before in front of an audience. At Gunderslam didn't know either, and I kept that whole thing. I definitely kept it a secret from Austin, the program director. But I didn't even say anything about it on stage either. It was just I just kept that completely under wraps, and I didn't really talk about it until after the show was over. So, but yeah, there's the answer to your question. It was kind of it was a rehearsal that started out slow, also because we were just tired, but we figured it out.
Cool. Yeah. So I saw your set. Thankfully, it's online. It made me. I don't want to lead the answer here, so I'll say after what got me thinking this. But what seemingly tame video game soundtrack rocks the hardest?
Seemingly tame.
Or I could just ask, what soundtrack rocks the hardest, but one that isn't obviously like a metal soundtrack.
Okay. I kind of feel, I mean, it just because it's just been in the front of most people's minds lately. No, I'm wavering. I'm wavering a little bit. I'm gonna say Kirby, but a close second would be Pokemon.
Okay.
I didn't do any. I do have a Kirby cover, but I did not perform that live. That's a tough one to play.
The reason I asked was because you played Dr. Mario, and I was like, oh wow, this is
yeah,
a lot heavier than I remember.
I'm glad you picked up on that. So the story behind that is, my wife is really, really good at Dr. Mario, and I thought I was good at Dr. Mario, but back when we were dating, we played Dr. Mario, and she just destroyed me. So I was like, okay, there's definitely somebody way better than me at Dr. Mario. But not only that, it's the girl that I'm dating. But then when I started really getting into the VGM thing, she was like, oh, what if you did a cover of Dr. Mario music? And I was like, well, I mean, there's kind of really only 2 songs for the most part in that soundtrack. And I was like, let's just kind of turn it into a little bit of a medley. And I think, like, as I was going through it, I was trying. It may be kind of obvious what my influences are, but I was definitely like getting a little thrashy with it. But then I was like, you know what? Like, I bet the outro of this song would sound really cool if it were like something that Pantera would do. So like if you listen to the last 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds of the song, like it slows down, it gets like, it's like very halftime, but like I'm hitting the chords hard, and I was like, okay, yeah. If Pantera did this song and really thrashed it, I was like, that's how it weaved its way into Dr. Mario. But yeah, that is definitely one of the most fun. That's one of my personal favorites that I've arranged, and I definitely enjoyed putting it together. And it was a blast to play in front of people, because I think people maybe it was like a very stark contrast to everything that was before that. So the set opens up with 4 songs from the Old Blood, which are kind of slower tempo, very heavy, very brooding, and then it turns into this like upbeat Dr. Mario thing. So and that was by design. I meant to do that.
While we're talking about influences, Pantera and all that, I sent a couple of your tracks to some friends of mine from the Old Blood, and I was like, check this out, because we kind of met over a specific metal band. We all met in high school, and it was really like you like this band? Oh, I like this band, and we're still like best of friends. So I sent the track, they loved it, and then 2 of my friends were like, you need to ask if this guy likes Blind Guardian.
I have never heard of them.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay. If you get a chance, it's like the nerdiest metal you've ever heard.
Okay.
They literally have a song called Lord of the Rings.
Okay, perfect. I love getting recommendations like this. Yeah, I think I've said this before during when I was part of a release event for the album last year. I feel that I think every major music influence in metal had made their way into that album somehow. Like, there's definitely, over the past, I'd say 3-4 years, I've really gotten into Gojira, so there's like a lot of Gojira influence. I've loved Opeth for over a decade. Definitely some thrashy stuff. Like one of the opening solos in track 2 is like a nod to something that Megadeth did. And the list kind of goes on and on. But did I want it to be that way? Not necessarily. Like that wasn't by design. It was just kind of like, hey, if I the song with the glockenspiel in it, that ended up kind of turning into like a Typo Negative song, and that was not something I had planned. It was just like, this is kind of like this slow song, but it's like, what if I just made it like like down-tuned guitars. Pretend that Peter Steele is like singing over this in some way. That was another thing, but that made it so fun. After I got past all the frustration in the beginning, was like kind of, even if I didn't mean to, was weaving in those influences that I've just listened to over the years. So super cool.
Let's talk a bit about Bloodborne and Souls games now, because I'm also a huge fan. Have been since Demon's Souls. Couldn't even really tell you what my favorite one is, but anyway. What food pairs best with Bloodborne? You seem like a decent cook. You seem like someone who cooks a lot.
Yeah, I do cook quite a bit, and let me go back to when I used to play Bloodborne all the time. So what would I be? Oh, okay, no, I I think I got it. So when I was really into Bloodborne when it first came out, I used to stream it on Twitch. And it was a habit for me to do it in the morning before I went to work. So I'd get up early and I'd be like PvPing in Bloodborne, and I would almost always, before starting my stream, have breakfast, and it was Fruity Pebbles. So I'm going to say Fruity Pebbles.
Okay. Seems like a contrast.
Exactly. I mean, we're all about that here, right? Dr. Mario, Bloodborne, whatever.
That's right. What is the most Souls, Blood Echoes, Runes, whatever, the most you've ever lost at once?
Ooh, okay. I don't know, but if I were to take a rough guess, I think in like the original Dark Souls, I had like racked up almost 100,000, and that was like a hard lesson. I was like, why didn't I spend those? And I was like, okay, I'm dead. Like, I'm gonna go get them, and then I died instantly. I didn't even get close to getting them back. And that was back in the days where Dark Souls was my first one. I didn't play Demon Souls until a few years after Dark Souls. But that was yet another harsh lesson learned among many others when you play that game.
I have to ask, as far as Bloodborne, I never actually played the DLC. A friend of mine tells me, "You fool, that's the best part." What say you?
You fool, that is the best. It really is. I think it's. I mean, yes, I love the game, but the DLC is excellent. I may get this wrong, but I'm thinking 5-6 additional bosses. All of those fights are great. As far as my album goes, Lady Maria is one of them. So I don't know who is not a fan of Lady Maria in the Bloodborne space. And from the DLC, I mean, geez, I guess 3. Yeah, I covered 3 songs from the DLC. So that'd be Lawrence, Living Failures, and Lady Maria. So yeah. Ludwig. I forgot. Oh, geez, how did I forget Ludwig? So that's 4. That's 4 songs just from the DLC. So I think that's yet another testament to how good it is.
And how about Elden Ring? I'm currently engrossed in it. I'm like 90 hours. I actually got COVID. This is a bad thing. But I got COVID like a week and a half ago. More than that, 2 weeks ago. So I was off work, and I literally pumped like 70 hours into Elden Ring. Have you been playing it?
Yes, I'm about 30 hours into it. So I was really, really heavy into it right when it came out. And then everything just came to a stop because I was like, I have to get ready for VGMCon. That was like, okay, I need to get my set together. I need to get the tech ready. I need to teach the other people how to play the songs and blah, 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 blah. So that just completely consumed all of my time. And then, but now even after I've gotten back, I was like, okay, it's time to get back into Elden Ring. I haven't touched it. Like it's been doing podcasts and trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of the year, and it just kind of still riding the wave. Now I do, and I'm working on my next project too, which I'm not going to give away just yet. But like all of this is like VGM is kind of like all my free time right now. But I mean, not to diminish Elden Ring at all. Like I've told people that. I'm obviously a huge fan of the series, but it's like open world Souls is like, okay, but then like you play the game, it's like, oh, I needed this. I didn't know that I needed an open world Souls game, but I needed this game. So I'm definitely going to get back into it. It's just it's on a hiatus for now.
So you've alluded to it many times, but I'm bringing it up anyway. You are working on a new project, VGM project. It's not a full album, if I heard correctly, and you haven't revealed very much, but I'm going to ask anyway, can you give us any exclusives?
Well, let me see what I can do here. The first thing I'll say is, yes, the current project I'm working on is just one song, but it's a big one. And it is going to turn into a full album after that. So it's just kind of the same path that the Bloodborne album followed. And I've already kind of figured out, it's like, okay, I know what the rest of the album is going to be. And like, I met so many people at VGM Con. I was like, okay, I would love to collaborate more. And it'd be good to just kind of offload some of the work too. But the song that I'm working on right now is I'll give you a little bit of an exclusive. It's from Final Fantasy. I won't say which one, but it's I think it's one of those songs that if you put it on, it's like, oh, that song, yeah, that one.
All right.
So I'll leave it at that. If things work out the way I hope they will, and right now we are on track, people should be hearing it in a few weeks.
All right. What this might give away more, but what's currently on your whiteboard?
Okay. So, actually, now that I look at my whiteboard, it'd be funny if we were on video, I could actually show you. But I had this very, very, very angry face on it when I was working on the Bloodborne album because I was so frustrated. And then I ended up erasing it after, I kind of got over all the initial challenges. So there's in terms of what's on the whiteboard now, there's actually 5 or 6 additional songs that they really haven't been worked on. It's just like, okay, as part of the next album to follow up from the single I'll be putting out soon, I think are gonna be part of that whole sphere. So those are up there on the board. And not only that, but I've also kind of tagged some of them in terms of like, like this particular musician in the community would fit really, really well for this. So I've already kind of, now they don't know that yet. I've already kind of like tentatively tagged people for, it's like, okay, I've got a list of songs, but I've also got a list of collaborators that I think they would really fit into this. So, I mean, yeah, again, it's just another nod to just VGM Con. Is like you get to hang out with so many people and just like forge new relationships that it's like, okay, you kind of start building this Rolodex of musicians and collaborators and just super talented people that you just really, really want to work with. And that's going to be part of the next big project.
Can you tell us at all about your, you were obviously ahead of the curve as a kid, about your Let's Play style videos that you recorded on VHS?
Oh yeah! Wow. Where did you find that? Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Oh, I was not prepared for that question. Very well done. Okay. So yes, when I was a teenager, I would, so this is, and I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I pretty much grew up with a lot of Super Nintendo and JRPGs and things like that, and to me, it was like I had discovered fire when I figured out how to hook my Super Nintendo into my VHS and then pass that through to my TV. And I was like, wait, I can actually record this stuff. And I think I didn't do live commentary over it because I had no idea to do it, but I was able to go back later and do it with like some overdubbing. And like this is just it was. What was I ahead of the time? Like, who knows? Like, there could have been a bunch of other kids who were doing this, maybe not. But yeah, I don't think I have I'm trying to think if I even have those original VHS tapes anymore. I think they just disintegrated over the years. But some of them do exist out there in the ether, which you've obviously found. So, but yeah, I mean, to take that even further, like I even did some Let's Play stuff like in the early 2000s, and then I was really big into Twitch streaming from maybe like probably when the time the Bloodborne came out was 2015, and then I did that for about 3 years. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of always been in my blood where it's like I've always loved gaming, of course, but I think it was just more about just like trying to share the love a little bit of how I or just talk about what I was feeling at the time, and that was the other thing. Like I had friends too when I was growing up back then who were like into it too. There's like just think of all the crazy things we can do with our commentary over this stuff, and yeah. That I guess that's the gist of it.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, us nerds, there's something about sharing that experience which I'm sure is why Twitch is as big as it is. Like, there's just something about it that we have to, tell you about it and then listen to other people talk about it.
Yeah, a good friend of mine and a streamer, he's like his part of his brand is basically like you come to a stream, he says, "Hey, come sit on the couch," and this is a Twitch stream. But the way he kind of explains his stream is that I want it to feel like we're all sitting on a couch together playing this game, and you're all either spectating or we're playing together. And I was like, that really connected with me, because I was like, that's what I loved to do as a kid with my friends. And one of the very first video games I ever played was Zelda 2, and my dad was into it, which says a lot because he usually was just into puzzle games back then. But he was really into Zelda 2, and like he and I used to play that a lot. And so I think that again is like back to the nerddom, but it's super social. Like you just want to share your experience with others, and it's a little bit of an escape too. It's like you're kind of going to, I know this sounds super cliche, but like you're going to a fantasy land, or you're kind of stepping outside of your own self. But to share that experience with others is a whole other thing.
Well, you mentioned the Twitch thing that you were into. You're not really into it anymore, but you've done. You have a few educational videos. Not the word I'm thinking of, but your camera and lights set up for your live performances. You've got things rigged so that as you play, the camera and the lights will switch and do. It's just like a super cool show, and you've explained it on video for how people can do this. That seems like it translates very well to Twitch. So are you planning on getting back into that?
Not out off my own channel. Like I'm always looking for opportunities to play virtual shows. And yeah, I know, like, especially, kind of where we are with the state of the world with COVID, like we're starting to get back to live shows. But I mean, the virtual shows are still happening. And in my opinion, they're still a very viable way to engage with an audience. In some cases, like, and you saw that in the last virtual show that I did was for Bonus Stage, and like sometimes you can do things that may only be stream specific, like completely like switching videos and switching cameras, and you can get really creative. And like the whole light show thing, like yeah, you can certainly do that in a live setting, but like when I was at VGM Con, like I didn't control the lights. That was done by the staff. When I do my own virtual show setup, like I control the lights, and I can sync them up to certain parts of the song and strobes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if I ever get opportunities to play virtual shows, and I'm hoping to do some more of those later this year too. I would love to do them. Is my Twitch channel dead? I wouldn't go that far. Am I gonna perform some necromancy and bring it back one day? You never know. But for now, I'm more than happy doing those virtual shows on other people's channels.
Cool. Well, Mahn, people can check out and get your albums. You've got Spears and Hammers, World Warriors, Journey, Sanctuary, and of course the aforementioned The Old Blood, a Bloodborne concept album at Mahn. That's mahn.bandcamp.com. You're on Twitter at MAHNTV. And YouTube, Monkeyman 2,
yep.
MAHNKIMAN 2. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was great.